So yeah, I wish I could say I had this magical journey to the high-tech field. I wish I could say I wanted to be this my entire life. I didn't. I wanted to get to college. I got scholarships, and I was sat down by my math teacher and said, you're in the wrong major. If you really want to be able to pay your way going forward, if you want opportunity, if you want to have more control of your destiny, the world's going high-tech, and you need to add that to your major. And he was right. I have not coded a single day in my life once I graduated. But it's opened many, many doors for me, and it's created a thinking in the way I think about things that has helped me excel in the high-tech field. So I'm going to talk about finding your own leadership. I've been working on this for a long time. I work on it every day. I try to define my leadership style, refine, I try, I fail, I learn, I come back at it again. I wake up so many mornings and say, okay, yesterday did not work, we're going to try it again. We're just going to try it again. We're going to be the leader you want to be. So I'm going to talk about my journey and share some of the things I've learned. I will say that through my journey, I have had a very organic growth, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So even once I got into Intel, I didn't quite know where I was going, but I figured it out now. I know where I'm at. And I use all these learnings to create my style. And my style is called compassionate leadership. Your style may be different, although I hope at the end of this, I've left you with just a little idea that maybe we need to bring a little more of the heart back into leadership. And that's what I'm passionate about. So 24 years ago, I started in Intel. That was also about the last time I worked out, I'm pretty sure. But that's why I love that picture. I used to do it. It was really fun, and it was great. I'm gonna do it again. I'm pretty positive. But throughout my career, as I mentioned, it was very organic. I would say more often than not, I was pushed up, I was pulled up, and in some cases, I made a run for it on my own, and I succeeded. In some cases, I failed. But a lot of that, for me, that organic growth came from establishing myself. Do hard work hard, make a difference, build credibility and respect, and then you're just that top-of-mind person when the next big, great job gets open. You're the one they want to pull in. So that's been a lot about my career. I can also tell you I learned throughout my 24 years at Intel, I'm not really motivated by titles or money. I really like titles and money, but I'm not motivated from them. The job I'm in right now, I run a multi-billion-dollar business. It's one of the largest revenue contributors to Intel. I've been general manager for 4 years. I said no to the job. First time, I said no. I don't want to travel that much. I looked at my boss, your hair's turning gray. I don't want that job. A year later, he said, this big development program is opening up. Only 5 people get to go in it. It's going to put you in position to be in my job. And I said, no, I'm not ready. It's not what I want. It doesn't motivate me. The third year, he came and said, I'm hiring a GM. You're going to work for him. I hope you like him. And I said, no, I'm going to take the job. And so at that point, sometimes no's are good. Sometimes you just need to get that kick, whether it's a kick out and a push or it's a pull up. But that's kind of how I've landed here. My reason for working are my people. Those in the middle are my people. I have twin girls who will turn 13 this year, and a husband who's wonderful. He also works at Intel full time, so we have quite the little Intel powerhouse going on. But I had, and maybe you've done this too, and somebody talked about just about having a baby and things like that. You learn a lot about yourself as you go through this. I thought I would want to be a stay-at-home mom, and I took a pause too. I am a big fan of the pause. For 3 years, I worked part-time once I had my twins. But I found I'm a better person. I'm a better mom, a better role model. I'm more interested in life when I work, and so I went back full-time. And my passions, anything outdoors. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm pretty much born and raised there, native Northwesterner. I love the outdoors. If it's not raining, which we get a few days without rain in Oregon, we do. If it's not raining, I'm outside. And I love to go on big vacations. I love to do that with my family. Those are expensive. So then we go all the way back to the circle of career. So I like to work so that I can do my passions. So Little about me. Now, how did I get here? I've learned a lot of things along the way, and I can't claim to be a perfectionist at any of these. But there's 3 things that I think are important for today's leaders. One, you have to be yourself. We do talk about this a lot. Conferences and the work environment and trainings. Be genuine. Bring your authentic self to work. That is very important to me. I would challenge you to think, when you think about yourself, think about what you want to do, what motivates you, but think really hard about what doesn't. It's a consequential choice. If there's things you want, that by default means there's things you don't. And the sooner you can get your head around those things and you can speak confidently about them, when I could finally say, no, not now, I don't want this job, but 3 years later, yes, I do. That took, as a mother especially, that took a lot of weight off my shoulders because I knew who I was. I'm going to talk about sponsorship too. Do you know the difference between, who knows the difference between sponsorship and mentoring? Good. This is huge, but there's a lot of people who don't, so give me a minute to explain. Mentors, you know mentors. They're people you ask maybe once a quarter, once a month, maybe ad hoc. They have something, you want their advice, opinions, you want to learn how they did it, and you want to take that learning and incorporate it into your work environment. Sponsors are different. Sponsorship is a relationship. These are people who know you. They know what you want and what you don't want. These are people who will put their name behind yours. And that is when new jobs come available, they're speaking for you. When you're not in the room, they're speaking for you. Sponsors are people that will pull you up and push you up, and it's a relationship. So I'm going to talk about building sponsorship because for me, that sponsorship has directly led to me being where I am at in my company. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about empathy. That's the heart. It's something we do at home pretty easily, but I find sometimes people check their heart and maybe just their self-control sometimes at the door when they walk in the environment. And if we aren't thinking compassionately and empathetically at work as well, then we're not honoring the diversity in any of us because we're really just thinking about ourselves. So be you. Be comfortable in your own skin. For the longest time, I was told that I lack self-confidence, which I actually do. I lack self-confidence. It's something I work very hard to get to build it out, to do something like this. But I was told, you gotta start faking it till you make it. You need an edge. You're too consensus driven. You like collaboration. You're not hard enough on the edge. Well, I didn't like the environment I was in at the time. This was about 10 years ago. I didn't like the people who had an edge. I didn't respect them. I certainly didn't want to sit down with them and have coffee. They were not the person I wanted to be. So that was when I finally just stepped back and said, you know what? It might take me longer to get where I'm going in my career. I might not fit in. I might not get invited to the small circles. But I'm going to be me. And eventually, unfortunately, you get experience, you take a lot of learning, you make a lot of risk calls, you learn how to make decisions, you kind of naturally get your own edge eventually. But my edge is still not a hard one. I can be resolute, assertive, but I'm not going to be aggressive or disrespectful. Another thing I would say is don't compromise. There are things about all of us to be good leaders that we need to work on. Communication, risk-taking, decision-making, strategy. Those are things that are in us that we need to be conscious of and developing to be great leaders. But there's things we can't compromise on. I said mine was about an edge, how I treat people at work and how I work with people, even if it's not the fastest or the most hard-ass, right? I'm going to do it my way on my terms. I took this amazing class at Stanford a year ago, and we had to write a vision statement. And this was it was a week. I heard Condoleezza Rice she gave us a class on poli-sci. Are you kidding me? I was like, wow, this is amazing. But the most impactful thing I walked away from, well, she was pretty cool. That was pretty amazing. The most impactful thing I walked away was this vision statement. And it was supposed to be a paragraph, but I couldn't get through it took me a long time to get past the first 2 words. Or 3, sorry. I am me. period. That's all, like, for the longest time. I was like, I don't want to be anybody else. I'm tired. This whole week of development and learning, if I feel like somebody's trying to make me be something I'm not, or pull me or shape me, that's good, but make me somewhere I'm not or where I don't want to go, that puts stress on me, fear on me. But when I stand by myself and say, I am me, whether I'm quirky, whether maybe I talk too much, whether I make jokes at inappropriate times or inappropriate jokes, right? There are just things about me that are gonna be me, and I've tried to polish those edges in some ways, and you have to, really, to grow. But know who you are. So now my statement, I got a little farther, it's I am me, consistently and without compromise. They still wanted a paragraph, so I wrote a bunch of other stuff, but really that was it. That was the more piece of it. Now another one is acknowledge your own ability. So this is, let's talk about self-doubt and self-confidence for a while. We tend to underestimate what we can do significantly. Everybody's probably heard this, right? 10 things on a job description. A man will look at it and say, 7 out of 10, I got this. The woman will look at it and say, I don't have 3, I'm not qualified. I'm not making that up, so if you don't take offense, but it's studies. Women, we doubt ourselves. I was listening to the radio, and there's this, a radio announcer had talked to Lionel Richie, and he'd said, some days I just can't get out of bed. And he's, what, you're Lionel Richie? And he said, well, I get myself out of bed, and I stand in front of the mirror, and I say, you're Lionel Richie. You have to get up today. People want to hear you. They love your music. They want to meet you today. Lionel Richie has to get out of bed today. I thought that's pretty good. If Lionel Richie needs that, I do too. So there's a lot of days when you see that, feel that self-doubt creeping in, make sure you are also putting through your head all the things you are good at to counterbalance those. And I do that too. I mean, there are just days right before a meeting, if you get really nervous, just start running it through your head. Tell yourself the things you want to hear at the end of that conversation or at the end of that meeting. Tell them to your head. Get your head there too. And the last one I want to talk about on being yourself is self-bias. We talk about micro-iniquities in the workplace, right, that or subconscious, unconscious bias, right? These things that tend to maybe you feel like it favors men over women, or you feel like it favors one religion or one nationality over another, right? We talk a lot about Intel. I will say the far greater bias is the one in your head. I constantly will catch myself saying, at Intel, I work with some incredibly gifted fellows. I saw Rhonda was a fellow, right? Some of the smartest technical people on the planet. And I find myself saying, I'm not technical. Well, I'm not as technical as them, but I'm technical. I have the degree. Don't tell anybody I don't use it, but I have the degree on paper. And I have had technical jobs. But I am the one that's putting the bias in the system. Nobody's looking at me and saying, she's a female, she must not be technical. I am. So do watch for the self-bias. And sponsorship. I mentioned sponsors are the ones that are going to put their name behind yours. They trust you, you trust them. My rule here is you need 3. You need one in your direct chain of management. You need one on that same kind of staff level who can influence that direct chain of management. And then you need someone else outside looking in. And you must always have 3, because I don't know about your companies, but at mine, I had 3. One left the company. The next one fell out of favor with our executive. The third one, thank gosh, stayed around and helped put forward my VP nomination. So really think when you network and when you find mentors, the end goal is sponsorship, not just learning. And be your own sponsor. Like I said, a lot of this is just about having the faith in yourself to stand up and tout your own capabilities. Not bragging, not boasting, but being able to say with fact, these are the things I can do and these are the things I have done. And last, I want to talk about, for one, I love this little girl. It's not mine. Mine are so tall. Bring empathy, because it's hard. It's hard in high tech. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care what race, nationality, age. High tech is hard. It's fast. It's complicated, it's changing, and it's hard. So it's hard to be in high tech. It's hard to be a woman in high tech, a mother in high tech, a friend, a mentor, a sponsor. What we do for a living, all of us here together, is hard. So if we bring empathy to work and we put ourselves in somebody else's shoes instead of our own, and we start thinking about what they're thinking about, it's much easier to, one, enroll stakeholders, to motivate them to go down the path you're going, and two, to actually just check yourself. I do this a lot with my staff. We get in confrontational experiences, or confrontation, and I say, stop. I know you're right. I know that's wrong, and I know we have to fix it. But why don't you please just go sit down across the table, let them talk first. Listen to what they're saying. Why are they saying it? Listen to their reason, and only then start the conversation. So when you have empathy, and we all have empathy for each other, that's where diversity begins, because we will allow each other to be our true selves in the workplace environment and not try to see everybody through our little narrow blinders. So this is one of my favorite quotes, and I'm almost done. A person who feels appreciated will always do more than expected, or a person who feels appreciated will work harder. I keep this up at work. I do not go to my team and say, wow, great presentation, you need to work harder. I do not use it that way. But I do know that when you take the time to give a thank you or to notice that somebody did something, great presentation. Wow, you really controlled the room well. Wow, did you notice how many people were just completely paying attention? Nobody was looking at their phones. Little tiny things like that help build confidence in others. They can then go recognize and reward others. And once again, it all comes back to bringing you into the workplace. Leadership is a journey. For me, like I said, I'm just sharing one person's experience in a high-tech world, and an Intel high-tech world is different than your high-tech world. But the things that have got me here and keep a smile on my face and keep me coming to work is about learning to be myself daily, finding sponsors who support me being myself daily, and bringing a compassionate element to my leadership style so that I'm listening and learning more than I'm tasking or requesting or deciding. So I hope you find your leadership journey too. I will be at one of the learning circles after this too. I'd love to learn from you, hear about your stories, and I'd love to answer any questions you might have about mine. So thank you for your time.